Hi there, this is exercise 3. Now in this we want to look back at our work from GCSE Maths and attempt just to remind ourselves of all the things that we've seen so far. Well, maybe not all, but certain things. And we might come to other bits and bobs later. So quadratics are one of those really important topics that comes up a lot. Now, of course, a quadratic is any expression with an x squared term as its highest power. And usually we describe these as polynomial functions. But you'll notice this one is ax squared plus a bx plus a c. So the ax squared is the quadratic term. The number of x's, the number, the number at the end. It doesn't all have to be there even. But you'll notice the highest power, sometimes called the degree, is to the power 2. So for instance, we might have a quadratic expression of the form x squared minus x minus 6. And this is all meant to be equations, so it's going beyond just factorising it. So we better set it equal to something equal to 0. Now if you're going to do this, you are meant to factorise. You should recall that you factorise this. And the trick that we use is double brackets. It's not always double brackets, but if you get all three terms, it will require double brackets. And the trick that we use is we look at the end term, which in this case is a 6, and we say what two numbers multiply together to give me 6. I have a difference of this number here, and here it doesn't say it, but really that means like minus 1. So we want two numbers that times together to give me 6. Now, usually when I do this, I think of 6 and I think, well, it could be 6 and 1, or it could be 2 and 3, or 3 and 2. Maybe it makes no difference. Obviously you look at those and you think these have a difference of 5. These do have a difference of 1, so these are the ones. Then my x numbers, in this case just x and x, go in there, and then my other numbers go in here. So for 6 we said 2 and 3. Now we've got to be a little bit careful. Is it 2, 3, or is it 3, 2? Now it says we want minus 1, so you can just see if I do 2 take away 3 or 3 minus 2, only one of them gives me the answer I want. So 2 minus 3 is what I want. So we better make sure this 2 is a positive. So let's write that as a positive. X plus 2, x minus 3. Now we're not even finished yet. The final line is when you have to effectively say it's either this or this is equal to 0. And if x plus 2 is equal to 0, you can just rewrite it x equals minus 2. And or, should really write it like that, x, now again it says minus 3, you notice you change the sign. So that's the way we do a simple one. And we're going to do more of those. Now, before I go on to that, I want you to try and have a look at these fractions. These are fractions which are meant to be simplified. So, for instance, this first one, if I was to do that, I can see that 5 is going to both 10 and 5, goes once and twice. And x goes into both x and x squared, and effectively it does that, and my answer is 2x. So I'll let you do the rest, and then I'll ping the answer up, so you might want to pause the video for it. Okay, so here's the answers. Oops, make sure you can see them, always helps. And hopefully that's what you got. Fingers crossed that you got. I certainly got the first one right, so hopefully you got the rest right. Now if you didn't get them quite the same, you might want to go back into them and see if you can simplify them a bit more. Now, let's get back to the quadratics. The quadratics, it says, again use factorization. And a couple of things I notice here. If I'm going to solve this equation, it's a quadratic. I know it's quadratic because I will get an x squared term there. But it's not equal to 0. So one thing I'm going to have to do is multiply out that bracket and then move everything over. So you may recall, I hope you do, that this means times it by itself. Now I always think it's best to write this out, because lots of people forget to write this out. And therefore they get it wrong, because they mismultiply it out. They generally just they multiply that by itself, they multiply that by itself. But they forget there's some other terms as well. So 2x times 2x is 4x squared. 2x times minus 3 is minus 6x. And it's these two terms, that minus 6x, and this is another minus 6x. They're the terms everyone always forgets. Minus 3 times minus 3, be a bit careful, it's plus 9 equals x plus 6. Next line, what we're going to do, we'll tidy these two up. 4x squared minus 12x plus 9 equals x plus 6. Now I'm going to move these over because I want it to be equal to 0. Now there's still 4x squared, but if I move that plus 6 over, it becomes minus, so that's minus 13x. And that plus 6 will go minus that plus 3 equal to 0. Now straight away you'll notice this has got a 4 in front. So I was always taught to write 1 and 4, 2 and 2, write the factor pair to that number. Luckily 3 has only got one choice. So somehow I've got to make 13. And the key for me is because it says plus at the end, these two answers have got to add together. So can I make 13? Yeah, I can. 4 3s are 12 plus 1 1. So I'll get 1 from that, I get 12 from that, and they add together to get me the 13. Now don't worry about the fact it says minus 13. The minus will just mean, because it's a plus at the end, my two signs are the same and they're both minuses. So I'll whack those in first of all. Now I've got 1 x. So these are my x numbers over here. I've decided not to use the 2 and the 2, I'm using the 1 and the 4. The 1 is attached to a 1. Now I did say previously that you put the outers together and you put the inners together. So 1x is times by the 1. Now the other x is the 4x. Now this goes in here. It kind of goes in backwards. And it's attached to that 3. So that goes in there. Remember this equals 0. So therefore x minus 3 equals 0 is one solution. And you can just change the sign. You don't have to write the middle bit. Or 4x minus 1 is equal to 0. And again, if you ever get this, basically you change the sign on this and then divide by the front number. So x equals a quarter. And that's what I think the answers are. X is a quarter, x is 3. Good, we've got the right. Use factorization to solve this. Now, straight away I don't like this. It doesn't look like a quadratic equation at first. And this I suppose is the difference between A-level and GCSE. At GCSE this gave you the quadratic equation. Here you might have to form it yourself. So I don't like this with x minus 1. How about I change that? You should know that that means 8 over x. Because x to the minus 1 is the same as 1 divided by x. So if I've got 8 of them, it's 8 over x. Doesn't look like a quadratic yet. I have got this fraction. I don't like the fraction, so I'm going to times everything by x. And this will give me the quadratic. So if I times that by x, I get x squared. Times that by x, I get 2x. And if I times that by x, the x disappears and I get plus 8. Everything onto one side because it's a quadratic, and quadratics are always best when they equal 0. And now it's a nice one because you can see I've got x squared. I haven't got 4 or 5 or 28x squared. So in these situations, you're just once again looking for numbers that go into 8. And I've got 8 and 1, or 2 and 4. And luckily I want minus 2 as an answer. And I can see here 2 minus 4 does equal minus 2. Again, note if I chose 4 minus 2, it would be 2, and that would be wrong. So, brackets, put your x's in first. There's a minus at the end, so that tells you that there's one of each sign again. So put a plus and a minus, and I've got a plus 2, take away 4, equals 0. And therefore my answers are x equals minus 2, or x equals 4. 4 minus 2, perfect. And I've got, I think this is my last question. Now, the mere fact that it says use a quadratic equation formula, that should be something that you should be wanting to make sure you know. For a start, let's give you the equation now. X equals minus b plus or minus the square root, this should be ringing bells now, square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. Now if this comes up on the A-level exam for OCR, it will have a magic phrase. It will say use detailed reasoning. Well, almost always they say that these days. Now this one doesn't really need to say that because it says use the quadratic equation formula. So if you don't use it, you're going to lose marks. But either way, that's what we're going to try and do. We're going to try and do this properly. First job, it doesn't say equal to 0, so x squared. If I move that over there, it becomes a minus 7x. So I reckon I get minus 4x minus 3 equals 0. It says leave in your answers in exact form. So anyway, let's do this now. A equals 1. It does say use a formula. You might be tempted to see if it factorizes. C equals minus 3. Just A, B, and C. And so therefore x equals, and we just pump the numbers into the equation. So minus 4, oh look, it says minus b, but it's minus 4. So we just make that 4. Plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4 times minus 4 is plus 16. Minus 4 times a times negative 3. The great thing is your calculator will do all that times in for you. All over 2a and 2 times 1, you might as well just write 2. Now, I personally would recommend you always do this square rooted bit first. Show you've done this properly. Now, 4 times 1 times 3 is 12. And notice it's minus and minus, so it's plus 12. 16 plus 12 is 28. Now, what it says, leave your answer in the exact form, so it doesn't want us to do anything other than tidying it up now. 2's go into that. And also, I can see 4 times 7 is 28. You should always look for square numbers that go into your number when you get a surd like that. So I reckon this is 4 plus or minus. Well, because it's 4 times 7, I can square root the 4, which gives me 2. And then it comes out root 7 over 2. And I reckon therefore the answer is, well, divide the 4 by 2, you get 2 plus or minus root 7. And I get two answers. It's either 2 plus root 7 or 2 minus root 7. And that's what my answers are. So in class we will do exercise 3a. I hope that makes sense. We'll perhaps do a couple more examples of each type in class as well, just to remind you of the methods. I hope that rings bells of what you did at GCSE. So best of luck.